to chat about being a generator. And so Jen and I go live every Monday talking about the different pieces of human design that allow us to understand ourselves on such a better level. And last week we talked all about manifesting generators, so go back and catch that live if you didn't. And today we're talking about generators. So this is one of the five energy types in human design. And we want to talk about how you can really leverage the amazing energy that you have as a generator without the burnout. We want to talk about how to be this happy worker bee without the burnout. And so we want to chat a little bit about like what does it mean to be a generator and what is this like how can you show up as your best self in this energy? So Jen, do you want to give us like the basics of what being a generator is all about?
Yeah, so generators, that defined sacral 70% of the world, half of that 35% has that manifester quality that Mistral talked us through last week, being the manifesting generators. But thinking about the 70% of the world that's generators, you guys have this defined sacral, so this consistent access to life force energy that gives you the ability to do. That's why I love the worker bee analogy, right? Because the worker bees, they have their mission, their purpose, and they do. But in society today, it's really hard to make sure that you're doing what lights you up. Because if you're doing just to do a worker bee and be like, but really, I want to be over there. Like, I actually want to be, I don't even know different types of bees, but like I actually want to be the flower, right? I don't want to be the worker bee. You're just going to live in a world of frustration. So, how can you find what lights you up and really give yourself permission to only do what lights you up so that you can find that satisfaction and really allow yourself to be immersed in and embody pleasure and desire because it's what you really enjoy that you're going to have all the energy to do and be satisfied, to not be frustrated. And really, projectors were created 400 years ago to help you guys just do that. Like, we don't want you working just to burn the energy, to be that energizer bunny and just like pace back and forth and be like, this is how I'm going to drain my battery so I can sleep and just do it all again tomorrow. Like, is that how you want to live life? My guess is no. So projectors are really here to help guide you to say, oh, this lights you up. Here is how you focus. How you can actually be efficient in how you manage your energy so that you can do what you love forever and ever and have the best life possible.
Yes, yes. And one of our friends on here is saying her fiance is a generator, which I think is really awesome because my husband is also a generator. And so as a manifesting generator, married to a generator, I kind of know a lot about like how our energies intermingle and how we utilize them best. And one thing I'm always really impressed with my husband is that he doesn't necessarily know and understand human design on a level like I do, but he naturally lives in that energy. When he is getting frustrated and burnt out, he immediately knows that he's out of alignment. And so something has to shift or something has to give. And he's so good at being able to recognize that and do it, which I admire in him. But I also think that there's a difference between, women and men in that, and that's a whole different conversation. But I think what I really like about that is when he is lit up, you can just see it in his face and his body and the way that he moves in the world. And when I see other generators like this, it's the same, right? And so it's understanding that potential of the energy and keeping it in that joyful state, like what you were saying before, and avoiding that frustration, right? The not self theme. And so one thing, Jen, I want to touch on is like, okay, so you're in your energy, maybe you're in a 9 to 5, maybe you're in a entrepreneurial position. Like, how do we leverage that energy and how do we use our authority and our strategy to leverage that in ways that support us to create, that joy in our everyday?
Yeah, and I'm loving on the comments here. So far we have three manifesting generator women who are with a generator male partner. Like,
Yeah.
that's crazy. And as a projector, like I don't want to date a generator. I have before. It is not like that sacral is too much for me. But I love the balance that you all can find in that relationship and manage it. And the one thing that I wanted to add about generators is in human design, we often talk about projectors being the most open, being the most conditioned. But I actually find this true to be true for generators, because generators, you can have such a diverse definition, right? You're a generator just because you have a defined sacral. But what that's connected to and lit up, I find that the generators with only 2 or 3 defined centers are much more like projectors, because that openness, that conditioning that they can receive. So while we're talking more specifically about the sacral today, making you a generator, there are so many different types of generators and different components that make you really, really unique.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point to add in there because we're kind of talking about that tip of the iceberg. But it's also like the foundation layer that in order to like really step into who you are and own that power, right, is understanding the how your energy is designed to show up and how you best utilize it. Because, like you were saying, conditioning wise, and I do see this in my husband around certain things where he just so set on completing a certain task or doing a certain thing for a certain reason until it's done to the point of burnout or overworking. And then, even though it was a task that maybe was once joyful, it can become almost frustrating to be doing it and the joy gets lost, right? Especially when there's that pressure to have it done at a certain time or working into burnout to get it done.
Yeah, and I think what I see with that too is because the generator aura, just your energy, and I've been seeing a bunch of sponsored posts on Instagram of Ross speaking to the generator aura. So if that pops up on your feed, definitely give him a listen,
Mm.
because he talks about it, of course, right? It's raw, but he talks about it so well that just your energy, and we talked about this a little last week, it's open and enveloping. Like you just standing there is drawing people to you, drawing that energy in that is just so like juicy and yummy, and they want to know more. But the difficulty with this for generators is that you can get really distracted, right? You kind of have ADD. It's not the ADHD that manifesting generators have, because that's just like next level, like hyperactivity. But generators, you can get really easily distracted and put your energy to the other things, right? Like if we're using the worker bee, bees could get really distracted with like, man, I'm really struggling with this acronym, but like buildings, right? Sometimes they come up to my colorful clothing. They get distracted and they're like, "Ooh, pretty colors." Yet they're not using their senses to say, "Wait, I actually need a flower and I really just need to focus on the flowers themselves and not all the, sparkly things that are luring them."
Yeah, that's perfect, Jen. And I was going to sort of think of like a business analogy. Like some of my clients who are generators, when we first start working together, they start to realize like, oh, I just can't, I'm just doing all of these things and I love doing them because I'm pumping out content or I'm pumping out information or I'm offering free workshops. But what they're doing is they're working themselves into burnout almost because they're not focusing on maybe how to take this energy and create a funnel or how to take this energy and utilize it in ways that are really awesome. They're thinking, I just have to keep pumping out content, even though I think I like it. Now I'm getting tired and over it and it becomes a frustration. And so there is that balance for generators to understand, how much is too much, right? Especially as entrepreneurs, and we've been conditioned, like when you're not working, you're not making money, it can very quickly lead to burnout, especially with that defined sacral because of that energy.
Right. And the not self of the sacral is, do I know when enough is enough? So that's a
Mm.
question that I struggle with so much as a non sacral. I have to constantly check in because I don't have that little sacral pop up to be like, hey, you can stop. Enough is enough. So I really have to work to have that awareness. But generators need to work at that too because of the conditioning. Your sacral can light up to say, this is enough. I need to stop. But because of the conditioning, you're like, I got to keep going. I can't stop. And then the frustration and the burnout comes.
Yep. And then that's a real shame, especially when it's in your business and it's something that you love. And now you have to sort of take time off. And so, I mean, that's one of the reasons we have planning by design, right? So we can really help women understand how to utilize their energy flows and so that we are making decisions that are in alignment and work for us individually versus a blanket statement of this is how you show up or this is how you create. And so if you are an entrepreneur who just feels like you're not getting that traction forward, like you should check out our Planning by Design membership because it'll sort you out for sure.
Absolutely. And the last piece about the generator is about the strategy, right? It's about
Yes.
responding, but it's also about waiting to respond. Because I see so many generators being impulsive and say, oh, I got to respond, but they're not actually giving themselves a pause to really sit with that sacral response and to say, is this the right time? Is this how I want to respond? They're just kind of getting the hit and going, but they're really
Mm.
missing the integral part of letting it integrate, especially if you're split definition. Like you might need to wait a little longer. But being able to respond in a way that you want to, right? And especially, Mistral, I would love to hear what you have to say in terms of business, how to wait, like why do business women especially need to wait to respond?
Yeah, no, this is such a good point. So, like, waiting to respond is key because as soon as they've said yes, oftentimes generators have this sort of stubbornness about them where they'll just be like, well, I said yes, so now I have to do it. So I just have to go and do it. And it doesn't matter. I can't back out. It's almost like the people pleasing stubbornness part about them. And so, and then of course, if they said yes, when really it was meant to be a no, and they didn't wait for that response, then they've almost like contracted themselves into something that doesn't feel good anymore. Right. And that could be something as simple as going out to dinner with friends or going on a vacation weekend or investing, money into your business, for example. And then that can leave a real frustration on the other end. So the waiting for that response is understanding that what it feels like in your gut, right? I know for me, like I'm an emotional authority, but I do still follow my gut for quick decisions. But it's understanding, what does a yes mean to you in your gut? Is it an excited zing? Is it a zap, and like for me, a no is a sinking feeling. Like, what does it feel like for you? Heavy energy potentially. And so understanding those responses your body's giving you, which of course we've never been taught. So we have to learn that. And that can be challenging for a lot of generators because they're used to just making decisions up here and
Mhm.
not following our body.
Yeah, and I see emotional generators having a really tough time because that sacral hit is in the now, but then they're also needing to wait to ride that wave. And especially if they're more open, then that conditioning can come in too. So it's really important to just at least give yourself a pause. Like for all sacral beings, I really love utilizing and helping my clients practice stop, breathe, reflect, choose. Like the more that you can get into that practice of stop, just take a breath to regulate yourself, reflect. What do I need to think about? What did Jen and Mistral talk about on that live that I listened to? And then you get to consciously choose, make an aligned decision for you. And the
Yep.
other piece that I love using for my design, and this is something that anybody can use regardless of your design, is always tapping back into your conscious sun. So being
Mm,
aware of that gift, right? Mistral, we were just talking about your conscious sun
yeah.
last week for gate 11. With that, and remind me, that gift of gate 11 is
Ideas.
ideas. Yes.
But and that one's in my unconscious. So my conscious is 22, which is the gate of grace. Remember, I have to bring more graciousness into.
Yeah. So checking in with that, mine's anticipation.
Yes.
So I check in and I'm like, am I actually anticipating this? So that's something in your reflection, right? When you stop, breathe,
Hmm.
reflect before you choose to say, like, oh, what is my conscious sun? That's 70% of my energy. Is that lighting me up too? And especially for
Yes.
generators, like, what is my gut saying? If you're an emotional authority, what is my emotional wave right now? I need to remember to ride that, keep coming back to check in with my sacral, but still really allowing time for that emotional wave.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're sort of sitting here just going emotional wave, gut, like don't understand what we're talking about, join Planning by Design because we talk about it all the time in there. And we have the tools and the resources and the workbooks to walk you through how to actually be tracking and understanding and leveraging all of these pieces. Because when you can really focus on being in your energy, right, for your business, for your life, everything flows regardless as to whether you're magnetic or not. Like that's what makes you magnetic, is finding that flow and understanding. As a manifesting generator, I show up so different to Jen, but we also make really great friends and great business partners. And so it's really important to understand and like appreciate within your friends that energy and or partner, right? And how to show up best and support them. And I think that's what's so cool about human design because it's literally the blueprint, right? Your map, your chart, whatever you want to call it, for yourself and your people.